You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven.
We must consider that we shall be as a city upon a hill. The eyes of all people are upon us.
Welcome back to the City Upon a Hill podcast. I'm Miguel Brown, and one thing I have been thinking about lately, especially with the conflicts in Iran, is the anti-war movement right here in the United States. From the loyalists of the American War for Independence to the hippies of the Vietnam War to those on both sides of the political aisle infuriated by President Trump's Operation America has continually faced the agenda of anti-war. During our war for independence, many people still passionately loyal to the British Crown called for the colonists to put an end to their revolt and make peace with the mother country. But, as Patrick Henry stated, the British soldiers are sent over to bind and rivet upon us those chains which the British ministry have been so long forging. And what have we to oppose to them? Shall we try argument? Sir, we have been trying that for the last 10 years. Have we anything new to offer upon the subject? Nothing. We have held the subject up in every light of which it is capable. But it has been all in vain. Shall we resort to entreaty and humble supplication? What terms shall we find which have not been already exhausted? Let us not, I beseech you, sir, deceive ourselves. During the Vietnam War, protests erupted across the nation as a result of thousands and thousands of American troops being sent to another country to fight a war that many did not see as a war that America should be involved in. These protests led to mob violence, glorified sin, encouraged hate for the soldiers who were sacrificing their lives for freedom and liberty, and in my opinion, sowed treachery among America's youth. And today, many still view Operation Epic Fury as unconstitutional and completely unnecessary, even though they are aware of Iran continually threatening death to America and President Trump. And while I think we can all agree that America should probably not have been present in some of the wars of our past, we also need to realize something about the anti-war movement in and of itself. It is a sneaky attempt to coerce conservatives into a Marxist globalist agenda of borderless countries, one world government, and world peace. To them, peace can only be brokered when all the nations of the world join together into one country with one leader, one currency, and one religion. And the religion will not be Christianity. Communism's end goal is to eventually dissolve all borders, government, and laws. The result? Men will live in scattered villages across the globe, each man doing what is right in his own eyes. And we know from the book of Judges that wickedness abounds when man is left to do whatever he deems just in his own eyes. The anti-war stance has occasionally led to extreme national security risks. At the close of World War I, the war to end all wars, right? America was so convinced that they had solved the war problem that some thought that she had no need for a military. They even tried to shut down military academies such as West Point. General Douglas MacArthur was one of many who pointed out the foolishness of this, and as a result, America kept her armed forces and her military academies. There have even been global attempts to make war illegal. All of these put national security at risk by risking the dismantlement of militaries and by denying man's fallen nature and inconsistency. One moment, man may be all for peace on earth, but the next moment, the exact same man may be trying to start another war. And while peace should always be our goal, we must accept the fact that man's sinful nature has not changed, and sometimes war is not preventable. That is why Scripture says, if it is possible, as much as depends on you, live peaceably with all men. We mustn't be warmongers, but we mustn't be pacifists either. Instead, we ought to judge wars case by case. We must realize that in a fallen world, war is occasionally and unfortunately an inevitable event. It certainly was during the War for Independence. And we also must realize that just as there is a time for peace, Ecclesiastes tells us that there is also a time for war. And just as war does not last forever, we know that peace does not last forever. Man has tried for lasting peace using treaties, alliances, pacts, and unions, but they always fail to take into account their fellow man's sinful nature. Imagine, just for a moment, a perfect society where every man, woman, and child were moral, upright, blameless, and let's go ahead and just make them all Christian. It would be a perfect utopia. Man would get along perfectly with his fellow man, and there would be perfect harmony and tranquility between God and his creation. We lost our chances for this in the Garden of Eden, though. And as James Madison very famously stated, if men were angels, no government would be necessary. If angels were to govern men, neither external nor internal controls on government would be necessary. From a very biblical perspective, we know that war is the result of the fall. War will continue to be man's resort to solve conflict until the return of Jesus Christ. Then we will see the war to end all wars. It was not World War I or any of the wars that followed it. It will be Armageddon. That is the war to end all wars. And when that war has come to an end, peace on earth will begin. But in the meantime, we must acknowledge this. A society without war can only be brought about through the reign of Jesus Christ. And one final thought before concluding. If you do have a religious conviction against enlisting in the military, or you have just been religiously convicted that war is wrong, you know what? That is respectable. And I really mean that. It really is respectable. However, in today's episode, I was just analyzing the anti-war movement strictly politically through the lens of scripture and historical context. And as I stated, I believe that war has to be dealt with case by case. Anyway, just thought I'd clarify. And there you have it. That concludes this episode of the City Upon a Hill podcast. As always, I hope that you were inspired and encouraged, and I hope that you learned something new today. God bless you, and may God bless America.
Before we sign off, I would just like to remind you to mark your calendars because November 3rd will be a monumental day in these United States, and your ballot could change the course of human history. From Sacramento to Tallahassee, from the land of 10,000 lakes to the Lone Star State, there will be elections throughout this nation for several different offices, including the Senate, the House of Representatives, and even governor. So make sure you do not work overtime that day. Do not schedule a doctor's appointment for after work on that Tuesday. And if your child has a soccer practice, I would encourage you to cancel for that week. Why should you do that? To show that you love and care for America, to exercise the God-given right of freedom of speech, and to practice the blessing of being able to vote for your leaders. So after work on that Tuesday, drive straight from work to the nearest poll and cast your vote for America's values of faith, family, and freedom. And if you have the ability to vote early, seize that chance too. Our nation needs your voice, and you can make it heard when you go to the polls this November.